the folks in the AI council, they need to be upskilled themselves enough to be able to show to leaders in the organization the possibilities. And that's often where I start with folks that I meet with is just, if I'm meeting with a marketer, like, I'm just going to pull some things together to just open your mind, right? And they all have that, oh crap moment of, wait, this is possible? Wait, you can do this? Wait, I'm paying a third party like so much money to do this. And I'm
GTM AI podcast with Jonathan Kvarfordt, Coach K, where you get the latest with AI and GTM today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It is I, Jonathan Kvarfordt, aka Coach K, and we are in season 2 of the GTM AI podcast. I am actually really thrilled and excited to have my wonderful guest, Lauren, on with me. How are you, my friend?
Hi, I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. If you are listening on audio, she has this radiant smile. You need to get on YouTube and see it because you're just like this bright energy, just like you have good vibe. So I'm really grateful to talk to you. So I'm so excited to have you. Following your LinkedIn, when I seen your content, I love it. And I want to get into the meat of some of the AI stuff you're doing. But before we do, like I do with every guest, I want to know about you. Tell me about you, the non-LinkedIn version. Like, who are you? Where'd you come from? And why in the world are you doing this crazy AI stuff with all this other crazies?
Yeah, awesome. So thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So a little bit about me. I spent 16 years at P&G. So my entire professional career, I spent time there in consumer insights, brand management, as well as sales. I ended up in sales because of my interest and passion for e-commerce. A lot of time in product innovation, retail innovation, and really driving change across an enterprise. And about a year and a half ago, I made a super personal decision to leave P&G. I actually have 2 young children, and I just wanted flexibility to spend more time with them. And as I stepped away from P&G and corporate America, I finally had a moment to lift my head up. And I was like, oh my gosh, this AI stuff, it is coming and it is going to transform absolutely everything. And I was just super interested and energized by it. So I decided to go really deep into it. And I remember early in my journey, I was on a walk with my old executive at P&G, talking to her about AI and just say, oh, Lauren, this is like the early days of e-commerce. And I said, no, Amy, it's not, because e-commerce was a new way or an incremental modality for shopping. AI will transform absolutely everything, right? The way we work, the way we live our lives. And so I was just super inspired. I decided to really upskill myself. And I spent that time thinking, oh my gosh, if I knew what I know now in my time at P&G, like how much more effective I could have been. And also a little time that I could have gotten back, right? To spend with doing the things that I love or spending with the people that I love. So that's when I just really decided, hey, I'm going to go all in and help others really understand this space and thrive in this AI-driven environment and really turn AI ideas and thoughts into true business building ideas. So this past summer, I started Wonder Consulting, and really my goal there is to help leaders thrive in the AI-driven future and to leverage the power of AI to accelerate growth. And I like to do that by demystifying AI to really make it practical and actionable for non-technical leaders.
I love it so much. So tell me, how did you upskill yourself? YouTube, through Coursera, or tell me all the deets.
Yeah, so many ways, right? So it started with formal education. I saw someone in my network had taken a Northwestern class. So I was in Northwestern Executive Education AI class, and I started there. And then I just started poking around on the internet of, hey, who's doing this kind of work? Who's doing this work as it relates to marketing or sales or the type of things that I'm interested in? That led me to other courses. I found the Marketing AI Institute, took some of their courses. Listened to great content, started to listen to different podcasts. And then I really leveraged LinkedIn as a way of learning, following people, following who they follow. One of the things I found in this AI community, which has been incredible, is this all lifting all each other up and just sharing with one another. And it's such a culture of sharing. And I think that's because the technology is moving so quickly, and also because there's so much that can be done with this technology that no one is truly an expert, because you, Jonathan, right, based on your background and experience, are going to use AI differently than I'm going to use AI. And together, it's great that we can share and just upskill one another.
Yeah, I love it so much. I've felt the same way with AI people. Like you and I haven't talked before this via Zoom or any other links, and yet I feel like I've known you because like we post and each other stuff and comment, and you've been nothing but warm and inviting, kind, and it's just everyone I've met, from East Coast, West Coast, Europe, Australia, and he's in AI. Like they're all just nerding out, all freaking out in a good way. This is amazing. You gotta see this thing. I just love it so much. Tell me this. I'm curious from you said about if you knew what you knew now back then. I'm going to reverse that a little bit. Based on what you know from P&G, and obviously they're one of the best process performing, and some of the things you've been doing was from a strategy viewpoint, like brand strategy and all this other stuff, which is fascinating. How do you take that, all that years from P&G working with the best in class in the world to now what you're doing with AI? What do you find that you're adapting that people are like saying, this is amazing? What is it that's point out that is a highlight for them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think like the principle and the core of the work remains the same. I think AI enables how you get it done and maybe how you could do it better and faster. And
Yeah.
share a couple different examples. So at P&G, we believe the consumer is boss, right? So the consumer is at the center of all the things that we do. Well, I found that AI is an incredible tool to keep the consumer in the center of the conversation. So that can be done a couple different ways, right? You can use tools like ChatGPT to do initial primary research with personas to understand unmet needs or pare down your research questions before you develop a learning plan. Another way to do that is to create, one of my favorite things to do is to create, if you're like selling to a retailer, creating a persona on your buyer, on your retail buyer, and then practicing selling against that buyer. You know, that's your consumer. And so I think it's an incredible tool to keep the consumer in the room and at the forefront of all of your conversations for many reasons. I think the second one is innovation. I worked a ton on product innovation. And product innovation at P&G and most companies takes a very long time. There are many steps, tons of consumer research, claim development, concept development, copy development. And I spent so much of my time in consumer research or generating claims or writing concepts. And now if I had those tools then, I would be able to not just do that work faster, but also likely better. And so I think the pace of innovation with AI is going to really accelerate. And then the third area in the world of P&G and many marketers, right, we create a lot of content. And AI is an incredible tool to do that. And when I talk to folks who are in brand management, one of the things I'm saying is, are you having these conversations with your agency partners? How are you holding them accountable? What are the measures? So it's not just, hey, how are you as a marketer using AI internally, but also how are you holding your partners accountable?
Yeah, I love that. You feel like I have people ask me a question. I know we didn't talk about this before, but I think you'd like this one. Where anytime I meet with someone, they ask me for 30 minutes of time and they'll be a friend in the GTM space or sales or some CRO or something.
Yeah.
And they always come to me. The first question they ask is, what tool should I get? And I'm always telling them, like, that's the wrong question to ask. It's not about the tool. It's about what you're trying to accomplish before that. So you posted the other day about your AI transformation, your 5-step journey. I'd love to have you double dip into that one for a second. Just tell me, like, when someone says, what tool should I get? What's the process you're taking to saying, okay, let's think about this a little bit differently. What would you do or say?
Yeah, the 5-step, I'll just quickly walk you through the 5-step framework. It starts with assess is all about understanding where your organization is today. What is truly the literacy of your organization? What are the attitudes and beliefs of your leadership? And also, what is the technology you're using today? And does it have AI integrated? Do you understand sort of the AI roadmap? And I like to use a scorecard that I'm happy to share with anyone to go through that phase to understand where you're at. And I always tell people about the scorecard. I don't care what your score is. The reason the scorecard is important is because of the conversations it will enable you to have. Okay. The second stage is establish. So once you've assessed where you're at, then you go to establish. This is where you're going to create your AI council, which I'll talk a little bit more about because I think there's been some hiccups in AI council. Yeah. This is where you create your AI council. You think about what are your KPIs. Those KPIs have to link to business goals. If AI is seen as this extracurricular activity, it will not drive the transformation that it can and it should. Yeah. So establish is all about what are the goals and starting to think about what are the business use cases that we might want to think about. And that takes us into experiment. When I think about experiment, I start with 2 things. 1, what are your repeatable tasks? And 2, what are things that are business critical? And I would do things that are business critical because, again, if they're not, then they won't be integrated into key business processes that inevitably will drive that transformation. Then I like to put them in a matrix and x-axis of the impact it could have if you could use this AI-ify this process. And then the other axis is dislike. So things that fall in the high impact, high dislike are often good candidates for experimentation. And then the last factor I like to look at is, where do you have your change makers, right? Where do you have the people who are excited about this, are going to blaze a trail and get things done? Then that after experiment comes scale. So scaling what works, constant iteration of experimentation, also creating that roadmap, right? Because you cannot experiment all at once. You just start to think about it pragmatically of, okay, we'll start here, then we'll go here, then we'll go here next. And then finally is adopt. And I always say, do not wait till you get through the process to start thinking about adopting, because adopting is all about creating a future forward organization and business, right? We know that as AI continues to advance, as we get to AGI, artificial general intelligence, the majority of what people do today will be able to be done by AI. So you start to think about, oh gosh, what does that mean for my organization? And what does that mean for my business, the services I provide, the revenue streams, critical things that organizations need to start thinking about.
Yeah, a couple of things I want to double click into is because I love this process, this whole conversation. Two things. First one is the process. I thought a lot about this from the point of view of, I always compare what we're going through to the Industrial Revolution because it's so revolutionary to our way of being and working. But back then it was physical work and now it's mental work. It's just a different shift. With that being happening, like it used to be whatever, how many people in a cornfield pulling corn, and now it's just a machine. So obviously those jobs were destroyed and they went to other things and then evolved to something else. I also think that the process itself shifted slightly and that people have to be willing to do that. Do you find that people have to be open to changing maybe a couple of things because AI gives us the ability to do things we couldn't have done before? Does that make sense?
Yes, but I think the hiccup is happening here. I think these tools are being rolled out and people are not being trained on how to use them or apply them in their job. And they're just like being given access to these tools and saying, hey, go for it, run wild, go see what you could do with this. And that's a problem because frankly, like everyone is very busy in their jobs. Like, where do they have time and energy to learn this new skill? And there's a lot of barriers to habit change. And so the approach I always like to take is you need to, again, move from random acts of AI to true integration into business processes. You need to think about what are those business processes that you can or should change or that might look different. Then integrate AI into that process, test it out. And if it works, change the process. And then just train people on your process of, hey, this is how we're going to get work done. It's not optional, right? It's just, hey, that if you wanted to do this job, to do this process, this is how it has to be done.
Yeah. I find you and I talked before this about enablement. Like enablement falls in the same trap as well sometimes too with coaching, training, whatever, where it's just randomly done for whatever reason and not really done strategically. So adoption of tech, process, skills, whatever you want to call it, never happens because it's done randomly. So I think the same thing happens. And you said before, like you feel like the hiccup in AI councils is this that you're referring to, is this thing, right?
So what I'm seeing with AI councils, would love to know what you're saying is everyone's like checking the box, like we have an AI council. And then you're like, okay, do you have a charter? What are your goals? And people like, and then it's just almost seems, oh, things are stalling or not moving forward, right? So they've checked the box. Well, really, there hasn't been a lot done. And I actually created a bit of an AI health check council checklist because I was like, okay, if you want to get to transformation, the first thing that you should look at, if you said you've developed an AI council, is the health of that AI council. Do you have the right people in the room? You need a mix of both executive leaders and people who get stuff done, right? Like the sort of that lower middle management that will get it done. You need to make it a priority for folks. This cannot be an extracurricular activity, right? It needs to be on people's work plans. They need to be held accountable for it. They need to have the right resources. They need funding if they need tools or leadership support, whatever that looks like. This one seems silly because it's like, of course, but they need to have regular cadence of meetings. And you're like, yeah, that seems obvious. Of course, it seems obvious. Like a leader's out of town, they're traveling, like, and all of a sudden it's been like 3 months since you've met. I tell people two things if they're like feeling like this in their council. One is narrow your scope. Okay. So some councils are enterprise wide. What I tell every marketing leader that I meet with is go build your own council. Okay. Go create your own council. Don't wait for the enterprise and just freaking run and ask for forgiveness later and charge ahead. And then the second thing, and this is going to sound like self-promotion, but I think it's true. Bring in an outsider, right? Like someone who can be that third party independent voice to maybe say some of the things that some of the folks in the group are feeling, but not comfortable to say.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me how, like you said, I feel like a lot of times the AI counselors is done more as a checkbox versus an actual strategic, tactical, and overall literal transformation of what, because that's what it's called, AI transformation, but yet it looks the same. It's just slapped a different lipstick on a pig. It's just like, this isn't transforming anything. Well, that's what I see a lot of the times. And partly it's because people on the councils don't always know the capabilities of AI. Like in general, what I find is a lot of people don't know the full capabilities of what you can do with AI. Like I'm still learning stuff and I'm deep in it every single day, all day.
Yeah.
And again, I don't call myself an expert. I'm a nerd. But when you have people who have a full-time job of marketing other things, who are not in AI all the time, how are they supposed to become the leaders of councils to do stuff? They don't even know it's even possible.
I totally agree. Yeah. And that's why I always say, like, the first step is upskilling yourself. And one way to do that I always find to be helpful is like download ChatGPT on your phone and use it in your personal life. The next time you like go to reach for Google, reach for ChatGPT instead. It'll help you create that habit. And the other thing is like just create a AI first mindset. Anytime you're working on anything, think to yourself, like, how might ChatGPT be able to help me? And if you don't know, just go in and ask it. And that's the incredible part of these tools, right? Is like they will help you. So yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I think, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this too, is as we get more and more advanced technology, there's, for example, when 3.5 came out, even when 4.0, not 4.0, but 4.0 was out with ChatGPT, like you had to be a lot more, I don't know if stringent is the right word, different type of prompting. And with O1 and O1 Pro and all these different models, like it has recursive learning, which means that it doesn't need to do as much prompting because it does it inherently in the model. And I'm seeing other tools like Copy AI or others that you push a button and on the back end is a prompt, but on the front end is just a button because the user's just give me a template of whatever, bam, and just prints it out. I feel like it's going to be more and more easy to adopt things, but there's still this, like you said before, there needs to be this group that understands the power of it, that can fully release it so that people don't have to have a hard time adopting it because it is tough to do when you're not knowing it. What do you think about that?
No, I totally agree. I think prompting's an interesting one because I really believe it's going to go away like over time, right? Like the systems will be smart enough to prompt you. And then, yeah, I mean, I agree with you that like the folks in the AI council, they need to be upskilled themselves enough to be able to show to leaders in the organization the possibilities. And that's often where I start with folks that I meet with is just, if I'm meeting with a marketer, like I'm just going to pull some things together to just open your mind, right? And they all have that, oh crap moment of, wait, this is possible? Wait, you can do this? Wait, I'm paying a third party like so much money to do this. And it's taking months. And so, yeah, I totally agree that like you've got to create this like sense of, oh crap. And you do that in some ways by showing what the possibilities are as that relates to like your specific business.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a little different take on the prompting because I don't feel like it's going to go away. I think it's going to go away for the mass market, but it's going to be, because that's NLP is a core part of AI. It's like a different type of code. But for the mass market, totally agree. I don't think prompting is going to be a thing that we have to expect people to do. Yeah. You said something earlier I want to tap into. Oh, adoption. I feel like when I go and talk to different people, there's different tech that don't require adoption because they're more infrastructure-based AI tech tools. And there's other ones that do require like Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever tool that people are using. Like when you do get to a point where you've gone through your 5-step process and you're ready to start recommending tools, do you find yourself leaning more towards tools that don't have as much adoption or like doing kind of the classics, or where do you find yourself leaning to?
Okay, 2 thoughts here. One is if an organization has already approved a tool, first leverage the heck out of that because that will be the path of least resistance and ultimately likely will still yield a lot of positive outcomes for you. So I'll give you an example, right? So many companies that I've talked to have created their own GPT. Microsoft and OpenAI went on a roadshow, right? And everyone got their GPT. Most employees are not using them, or if they're using them, they're just using them to like draft emails. And there's just so many possibilities. So where I always start is what is like approved, and how do we really maximize the output and outcomes of that tool? Because I think one of like my beliefs in this space is that AI can be incredibly overwhelming, right? There's a new tool every day. And so what I
All the time.
often tell people is, hey, if you could just master an LLM like a ChatGPT and combine that with your own expertise and experience, like that will give you superpowers. Try not to get bogged down in the new tools every day and really just master an LLM. Yeah. And so then that's my second piece of advice is really think through if you need a new tool to do something, because it's easy to get overwhelmed in tools, like just more tools, more things you have to keep up with, more policies, more risk of that tool going under, right? Like the space is evolving very quickly.
Yeah. I'm curious I saw this clip from Simon Sinek the other day that talked about the customer experience and how this company, because they're feeling pressured and pressed in a good way, we want to talk to AI. And so they figured out they had a chatbot, and then they did results and found out the customers hated it. And so they went back to, got rid of the AI, got humans, and instead they invested in emotional intelligence, conflict management, just getting the skills of those people better. And the NPS scores for the people in this category, I don't know what company it was, but some massive company he was talking to, went up automatically. So I feel like in 25, and this is where I'd love to get your ideas on trends, but I'm curious on how do you help people think about what can or should be done with AI and what can or should stay with the humans? Because I think we're still in this place where people like pushing more into what should be human, but they don't know that yet because they haven't tested it. And there's other things that should be AI because like data entry, why would you do that? It doesn't help me and you have a relationship. So it's like, how do you help people think about where's that balance between what the AI does versus a human does?
I think that the Simon example you shared is an interesting one. And it brings me back to the principle of consumer as boss, right? That did not work because one of the probably points of differentiation of that company was like how they dealt with consumers and customer support. And so I think one of the lens we have to think about, right, is like always keeping your consumer or your client or your customer, whoever you're serving, at the forefront of all of the decisions that you're making, and understanding is, will this be a positive experience for that consumer? And I'll give you an example. I'd love your thoughts here, right? Facebook just released the news, or Meta just released the news that they'll have like AI characters, I guess, like on site posting things and responding to things. And I was like, that feels not right for the consumer, right? So in my gut, I was like, okay, that feels off because that doesn't feel right for the consumer. That doesn't feel right for the consumer experience. That feels like something that is possibly benefiting the bottom line, but not actually right for the consumer. So I think that's a good lens to look through it.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit about when they had the AR or virtual reality world they tried to do with Meta a few years ago, and it just tanked. The metaverse, I think it was called. It was just such a big thing, and then just nothing. Because the consumers, this is dumb. Who would we do this? I feel like that's a lot of the case of just trying to understand where does the AI end and the human begin. I think is going to be one of the key questions this next year. And a lot of it because a lot of people don't even fully use the power of AI at their disposal and don't even know what they can do. And then once they do find out, it's okay, maybe this isn't something an AI should do. Tell me this. Let's double tap into what you think with trans. And I interrupt you. I don't know if you had enough.
Oh, no. I think we'll cover it in the next one.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So tell me about, I know we want to talk about, so two things before we go. We have 10-ish minutes. Okay. Two things. One is culture, and then two is trends. So let's first start with trends, and we'll hop into culture and end with that. Okay. Tell me what do you see in your seat of what's going to be shifting, changing in the next year, which is a lifetime in AI. But what do you think?
I know, right? So look, the AI models will continue to advance. We all know that. We saw a lot of signs of that coming into the holidays with all the new news. There'll be progress on video, image, of course, agentic AI, multimodal, et cetera. And I think those things are going to be very interesting and going to create a lot of possibilities. So I'll share like a different point of view on how I see the trends. Okay, Paul Reitzer, Marketing AI Institute, talks about 3 different companies. AI native, so that's an AI native company from the ground up, right? AI emergent, that's a company like P&G who hopefully is embedding AI into their work. And the third company, frankly, is obsolete, right? So if you don't adapt, you're going to be obsolete. I think 2025 will start to show us our first AI native companies. And those AI native companies will leapfrog the historical companies. And I think that will create a, oh no moment for a lot of companies. I think a great example of where I think that could start to happen is in the agency world. If you think about an AI native agency, what that could look like versus your traditional agency, an AI native company could totally leapfrog a traditional agency. We talked a little bit about this, but I think hopefully this will be the year of moving from AI experimentation land to really integrating AI into key business processes to ultimately drive transformation. As part of that, I think you're going to have to see a revamp on the AI Council. I think the path to purchase will continue to evolve, right? So we're seeing consumers searching behavior change. A lot of searching happening on LLMs like ChatGPT. And we're also seeing, which is so interesting, these LLMs become commerce players, right? Perplexity becoming a commerce player. So that world is interesting. And you'll also continue to see AI be rolled out on retailer sites. I just hope in all of this, as we hopefully automate some of the tasks that are repetitive and maybe take up some of our mind space, hopefully we'll see some bigger, better, more creative, more innovative ideas that drive growth.
Which one are you personally, which one are you most excited about?
Really, that's a good question. Personally, it will be very interesting to watch these AI native companies come from the ground up. And I'm super curious, like what they'll look like and, how they will be created. So I think that
when you say AI native, I want to make sure we're on the same page because I know of already a bunch of AI native companies been on for several years. So when you AI native, you mean totally built on AI? It's only AI, no humans? That AI native, or what do you mean?
No, like a couple humans, but like really embedding AI from the ground up. And you might be right that some of it exists. I think in my world of a CPG, like it hasn't really existed. So the best example, right, is an AI native advertising agency from the ground up and how that would look very different than traditional. So I think it'll be really interesting to see that because I think that will be the oh crap moment that's going to motivate a lot of companies to be like, oh gosh, oh, this AI thing was interesting till, oh gosh, we got to get on board. We are falling behind.
Yeah. I think to your point, there's different, I think, levels, or I don't know if there's another word for it. I'll just say levels for now. Like from the tech viewpoint, there's the classic SaaS or classic software where you have Salesforce, they're bolting on AI of some kind.
Yeah.
Then you have the AI true native tech. That's one side. Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is yes, the tech, but also the humans. So like from the process viewpoint and their structure and they do is all the AI native. I would agree with you. I don't think anything like that exists. Actually, no. I can think of two that exist like that. Not very many, and they're all super small, just getting going. To your point, I would agree with you. This is going to be a year where that kind of thing starts to happen more, and the processes are things that people do. Because that's when people get to do a startup, they want to do a marketing plan and a sales process strategy and all this other stuff. It's what if that was all AI-ified from the beginning? There's no playbook for that. So you got to make it up. Kind of crazy. Let's end on this because I know you wanted to talk about this, and I'm passionate about the subject as well, which is culture. And I know we talked about this with councils, but tell me your thoughts on culture for AI.
Yeah. So I'm going to ladder up culture to change management, right? Because I think change management boils down to culture, communication, and accountability. I think the culture that exists in most corporations today is not going to work for an AI-driven culture. And I'll give you sort of some principles that I think are going to be super important. We've got to let go of ego, right? The rapid pace of AI means that no one can really be the expert at anything. As we've talked about the next, like the importance of shifting from competition to collaboration. Like we're all competitive. Often at many of these organizations, folks are rated against one another. And that sort of competition mindset over collaboration is not going to work in this space because like we talked, you're going to use the tools differently than how I'm going to use the tools. We all have to be in it together. We're going to have to challenge the status quo. There are going to be those people who are just like, oh, we're doing this because it's like how we have always done things. Like, not going to work. Right. You also have to foster continuous learning. That's hard, right? When your folks have full schedules, and how do you reward that? And what does that look like? And then really adopting an AI first mindset. I think when it comes to communication, a couple of things. One, the leaders are going to have to be incredibly transparent. There's a lot of barriers. There's a lot of fears related to AI. So I think the best leaders in this space are going to be very transparent with their organizations in terms of what is happening, what the strategies are, and how they're thinking about it. They're also going to celebrate wins and make AI wins like very public and visible to see this FOMO effect. And they're going to make sure it's a two-way communication, right? Like they're going to share things, but they're going to want it back. And then accountability. So two parts to this. One, we're going to have to hold leaders accountable to integrating AI. I think that folks say you get what you measure. So how is AI going to be integrated into sort of leadership or business scorecards? And there's output focus, which you can think of that productivity improvements delivered by AI. And there's also like activity metrics. So like maybe the percent of organization changed. I think that the output measures are going to be much more important than the activity measures. So you're going to have to hold leadership accountable, hopefully integrate it into their scorecard some way. But then every individual, not just the people on the AI council, every individual is going to have to play some sort of role in this. And they're going to have some sort of AI accountability on their work plan, whether that's leading an experiment or being part of a project team or just learning a new process that integrates AI. But you've got to hold both the leadership and everyone in the organization accountable.
I'm curious because there's this question popped up as you're talking. So I love this concept actually about having a scorecard because I'm a big believer in what gets measured gets improved. So if it was you and you were a leader of a team and you had someone put an AI something or other on the scorecard, what would you choose? What would you want it to be?
I think ultimately what I would want it to be is some sort of business outcome, like cost savings enabled by AI or productivity improvements delivered by AI or business growth enabled by AI. It'd be hard to parse out some of those things, but I think that's where we're going to have to get to so that we're driving the sense of urgency and leaders feel accountable.
I love it. I actually have one more question, which is about your tools. The tools that you use personally, which ones are highlight for you?
Okay, so I use ChatGPT a lot. Like I said, like I really believe that if you can just master it, it can be your superpower. So I try not to use too many other tools unless I really see the value.
Yeah.
I do use Ideogram for visuals because fortunately, ChatGPT is just not there yet. Okay, and then this one is very exciting. Google Deep Research just came out before the holidays.
It's so awesome.
I was literally just complaining to my little AI women's circle, like how annoying it is to do research in these tools and how bad the hallucination is and all that stuff. And yeah, this tool came out and I was like, oh my gosh, like I've already used it like at least a couple times. So really excited about that one. And then of course, I use Otter sometimes. And I think for recording calls, and a lot of people record their calls and then do nothing with it. I think what I always remind people is like, that's great data. That's great data to understand your customer or understand how you could sell better or ensure that the next deliverable meets the feedback they provided. So
I love that. I've been geeking around since Deep Research came out. I'm like, I'm a big Perplexity fan, but I might be converted over to Deep Research because it's awesome. It's so cool. Like Google just seems like it came out of nowhere, just like they have VO and Deep Research and they have the notebook and I'm like, whoa, where'd Google come from? Sheesh, it's just crazy. But my dear, you are phenomenal. Thank you so much. So your website, I'll make sure we end with this, is wonderconsultingllc.com. I'll make sure we have it in the show notes.
Yeah, that's great.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Want to get in touch with you?
The best way to reach out is via LinkedIn. It's Lauren Morganstein Schiavone, or you can send me an email. It's lauren@wonderconsultingllc.com.
I'll make sure, if you're okay, I'll put your LinkedIn link in the show notes to make sure we can get you. But just want to say thank you so much. I'm excited. We'll have to do like a part 2 later in the year and just come back to this and be like, what actually happened in 25? We'll go from there. But thank you. I appreciate
you for having me.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more.